In a swamp, peat cutters find a wonderfully preserved 2,000-year-old human sacrifice victim. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. In the 1950s, the Højgaard family, like many others in their little Danish community, needed gasoline. With spades in hand, they set out for the neighboring bog. When their tools struck something strange, they discovered a body that seemed as though it had recently died in the bog, despite their deep digging for peat. It seemed understandable in a way that the Højgaards would stumble into this site. After all, there had been a recent missing person in the region. However, more research revealed that the corpse wasn't that of the youngster who had vanished in Copenhagen. No, judging by the beard that stuck out from his chin, this body definitely belonged to a guy. So what was his identity and whereabouts? When police learned that the deceased guy wasn't from their era, they quickly recognized they were in over their heads and weren't equipped to handle the situation when they arrived on the site intending to look into a crime. As it happened, he passed away thousands of years before being found and was astonishingly preserved in the bog. Police in the Danish town of Silkeborg responded to a strange call on a Monday morning in May 1950. 2 days before, brothers Emil and Viggo Højgaard had wandered into a bog some 10 kilometers west of the town, accompanied by Viggo's wife, Greta. Their intention was to remove peat from the marshy areas and utilize it for fuel. But as they were excavating, they came across another object. A deceased corpse discovered by the Højgaard family was concealed within the layers of peat. Anyone would be frightened by the discovery of a corpse in such a manner, but the state of this one was just terrifying. Specifically, the unnamed person's neck was wrapped in a plaited rope, which probably signifies how they passed away. Beyond that, the dead was only sporting an antiquated-looking sheepskin cap. The skin on the body was likewise quite tanned. Examining the corpse's face up close revealed that stubble was protruding from the chin and upper lip region. Naturally, the Højgaards duly contacted Silkeborg police after discovering what seemed to be a man's body. The news that a youngster from Copenhagen had gone missing on the Jutland Peninsula and that a body had shown up in a bog in the same area was one of the main reasons they sounded the alarm. Examining the corpse's face in more detail showed that it was not the missing Copenhagen schoolboy. After all, facial hair was growing out of its chin. Still, the corpse was so well preserved that the Højgaards thought they had found the remains of a recent murder victim. However, after police learned more about the body's discovery, they came to the conclusion that the Højgaards might not have contacted the appropriate authorities. The corpse was discovered at a depth of more than 8 feet, according to the family. Furthermore, they stated that they did not notice any indications that anyone else had lately excavated in that region. As a result, the police recognized that the specialists at the nearby Silkeborg Museum had more expertise in this area than a detective would. Newspapers began to publicize the amazing tale of the body found in the peat in the meantime. According to the Silkeborg Museum website, they originally began calling the body the Man from Bogville. However, it's believed that professor and archaeologist P.V. Glob gave the organization its current name. When the bog corpse was discovered, Glob responded to the call and began calling to him as Tollandman in honor of the Højgaards. They had, after all, discovered the corpse and were from the adjacent community of Tolland. Decades of study and inquiry of the immaculately preserved body began with the discovery of Tollandman. But first, the body needed to be removed from the bog, where it was supposed to lay, by specialists from the Silkeborg Museum. The brothers who had first discovered the body assisted them once more. To safeguard Tollandman, the Højgaards and museum employees constructed an enclosure around him. They accomplished this by excavating a space in the earth sufficiently enough from the corpse to provide him with a peat platform to rest on. After completing the sides, the excavating team gradually built the bottom of the box by inserting each board through the peat one at a time. After they had sealed it up and put a cover on top, Tollandman was safe enough to travel to his new home. Remarkably, nobody had come into contact with the body while constructing the box. Tolland. During man's voyage, a horse-drawn carriage would transport his box packed with peat from the bog to a train station in Moseland. From there, a train took him to Copenhagen's National Museum. There, specialists would carry out more excavations on the body to discover more details about the individual they had discovered, such as his true age and manner of death. The corpse of Tollund man stuck in peat took 8 days to reach the National Museum. The professionals working there were perplexed by his look. They weren't sure what to do with him because he didn't arrive with a note or description. But finally, under the direction of conservator Knud Thorvaldsen, they started an open-air excavation of the body in the museum courtyard. When Tollund man was placed in the courtyard, onlookers could view him unguarded, and many were shocked to find the face of the corpse still whole. As stated on the Silkeborg Museum website, the remarkably preserved face instantly captivated the attention of every onlooker. The Tollund man was photographed by museum employees under the direction of Thorvaldsen, and then he was sent to Bispebjerg Hospital. To find out more about Tollund man, physicians Christian Bostrup and Wilhelm Friis Vinding performed a number of medical investigations at Bispebjerg Hospital. They began by examining the reason of his death. He could have been strangled or hanged to death because of the rope that was wound around his neck. The final report said that the forensic examiner ruled out strangling, since it was highly unlikely that the rope was used for strangulation based on how it was positioned around the neck of the victim. Nonetheless, there was an unusual absence of damage to the neck and chin bones for a hanging victim. The rope left marks around Tollund man's neck and chin, indicating that pressure had been applied there, but there were no similar marks at the back of the neck. Given that the rope would have needed to be fastened at that place, Tollund man would have had ligature marks there if he had been strangled. The first results of Bispebjerg Hospital have been supported by additional investigations on Tollund man. Since then, radiography has shown that inside pressure caused the corpse's tongue to swell. Such a side effect would result with hanging death. Interestingly, Tollund man's vertebrae did not fracture or exhibit any damage, indicating that asphyxia had killed him from hanging. Another explanation regarding the centuries-old death in the Danish bog was supported by the fact that the Højgaards had found the body of Tollund man at all. Experts concur that it is improbable that Tollund man was hung for a transgression. His remains would have been incinerated if that had occurred. Murder also felt like a strange way to die. Rather, academics believed that Tollund man's demise was a component of a ceremony. Because bogs were considered exceptional sites by early Europeans, they came to think this. Ultimately, people had mistaken the light gases coming from the bog, known as will-o'-the-wisps, for fluttering fairies. Considering all of these, specialists think that Tollund, the death of man, was a sacrifice, maybe made in exchange for fertility. After that, his community carefully selected the bog as his ultimate resting place. Maybe he could live forever in such a magnificent setting, and maybe he did, given how well preserved he was even after spending millennia in the peat. In fact, even though it had become smaller over time, Tollund man's brain was still intact. Considering the age of the body, his organs continued to remain in comparable perfect shape. As we'll see, Tollund man's estimated chronological age was amended from the results of radiocarbon dating, which put him between 375 and 210 BC. He was 40 years old when he passed away. An inspection of the Tollund man's stomach was part of the medical checkup. There was a quarter liter of partially digested food left over, suggesting it was his final meal. A form of porridge or gruel consisting of flax, barley, and knotgrass was ingested by Tollund man, maybe even a day before to his death. These particulars demonstrate just how well preserved Tollund man was. Not everyone thought it was proper to showcase such a find, however how astounding it was. The head of the National Museum's Prehistoric Division, Circle Matheson, thought it would be too gory to show Tollund man's full body on exhibit. Therefore, Tollund man's head was cut off from his body by the Bispebjerg Hospital team following the completion of their autopsy. In this manner, museums may showcase the immaculate skull on its own. Since then, the corpse has dried out, leaving only the bones of the Tollund man. However, these fragments could come in handy for DNA testing in the future. Of course, the reason Tollund man stayed so well preserved for such a long time is the reason researchers have access to all of this data. The bog, long thought by the villagers to be mystical, was a major factor in his centuries-long condition of purity. It was actually a sort of magic. Smithsonian Magazine said of the bog in May 2017 that it has a unique chemistry. The bog itself is where the magic begins. It forms in a very specific way. Particularly raised bogs are excellent preservation sites. It all begins when water cannot be allowed to drain from a certain location, which prevents plants from decomposing and decaying as they should. This also covers up with sphagnum moss over time. Rainwater continues to fill the elevated bog, but it is low in nutrients and oxygen. Rather, the water turns very acidic, which inhibits the growth of microorganisms. Because of these two factors, an elevated bog is the best site to keep a person preserved for years, or, in the case of Toland Man, centuries. Particularly in the instance of Toland Man, the surface of his body shows the impact of the bog water. His hair and nails were also transformed to leather by the acid. Then, as the bog's sphagnum moss supply ran out, it released sphagnum, the polymer that bears its name, into the water. Sphagnum also had a role in Toland Man's preservation. It did this, among other things, by chemically binding nitrogen to stop bacteria from growing. In addition to aiding in the mummification of the body, it also removed calcium from Toland Man's bones, explaining why, when uncovered, he appeared somewhat rubbery. Experts are left with unanswered questions concerning Toland Man and the other remains they have found in comparable bogs around Europe in light of the science. The main question they have is if the people left so many corpses in the bog because they knew it would keep the remains of their sacrifices preserved. A hypothesis like that makes logical. It's possible that the corpses served as guardians to help the remaining members of the clan enter the afterlife. However, this theory, like most others about bog corpses, is based mostly on speculation. Ultimately, a large number of the villages these bodies originated from did not maintain written records. Experts are certain about the manner in which every bog body, including Toland Man, met their demise. Many of them died quite deliberately and ended up in their last resting place. Toland Man was executed by hanging, although horrifying injuries have also been inflicted by stabbing, strangling, and even blows to the skull. Toland Man keeps disclosing tidbits of information about himself and his era as time goes on and technology advances. For example, the Silkeborg Museum recently revealed that the age of the Toland Man has been revised using a more contemporary aging method known as ultrafiltration. In actuality, he had lived between 405 and 380 BC, a fact that could be declared with over 95% confidence. Of course, not all of the developments surrounding Toland Man have anything to do with science. Some are even more intriguing than the body's discovery. For example, the Silkeborg Museum received a phone call in October 2016 with an intriguing query. "I possess one of Toland Man's big toes," they declared. "Do you think it should be shown at the museum?" It found out that scientists had cut the corpse into distinct portions during the excavation and autopsy of Toland Man. Not only did they detach the head to show it alone, of course, but they also separated other body parts. It was discovered that Toland Man's big toe had been sawed off during the 1980s effort to locate all the missing pieces. There had long been rumors that Toland Man's toe had been severed by a conservator by the name of Borge Brorson Christensen. As it happened, following her father's death, Berta, his daughter, phoned up to return the phalange. And that is just another way that Toland Man still arouses curiosity and wonder thousands of years after he lived. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.